Welcome to a new episode of Flipping Miami. I'm your host, Raul. And today I have a very special guest on the other side of the camera, Brian Manley out of Arizona. Really good friend, man. We met maybe like 2-3 years ago in the first mastermind. And we connected, man. We hit it off. And Brian dude, he's a rock star. Him and his wife, they do a ton of business in Arizona. Now they're doing North Carolina, South Carolina. I heard him mention Alabama, things like that. They work. So just so you get an idea, Brian Manley does insane rehabs from what I remember. Really cool. I remember he was showing some pictures of like some of the kitchens and things like that. I was like, I have no idea what that even, that scares me, but he's able to do that. And he works virtually. They have a team virtually. They do deals. He is a pay-per-click and online wizard. So maybe we'll touch into that a little bit. And he manages all that himself from what I remember chatting with you. But dude, with no further ado, thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate you, brother.
Oh, man, it's a pleasure, man. My pleasure. It wasn't even a second thought when you sent me the text, man. I always, like you said, we connected. I always just thought, man, this is such an impressive dude, man. I remember talking about like, he's doing what? I mean, so yeah, man, it was just really good. And this, like I said, the hat today.
Well, the hat is killer, man. The hat is killer.
Somewhat Miami since it's this, but then I'm watching Breaking Bad rerun, so it's kind of my Heisenberg Miami going on. I'm like, I've seen them all, but there's nowhere to go. So.
If you guys are listening to this on iTunes or Spotify or whatever, you have to check out the YouTube video I'm going to put because you have to just to see his hat. You can click out of it once you're done, but his hat is. You got to see it. It's a Breaking Bad. It's dope. But, dude, Brian, I appreciate you coming on, man. He's got a lot of interesting things. So I think we can hit on a lot of, like, valuable things. Brian, I want to get into what your business looks like, but I want to take it a little bit back. I like to start things a little old school.
Okay.
Dude, if let's say we would have met in high school, who was Brian in high school, man? Were you a good student? Did you play sports? Were you a class clown? Were you a nerd? Like, who was Brian, man?
I've never been asked that question before.
That's good.
You know what, man? I was an interesting character in high school, man, because
really?
I went through, I played sports. It's popular in a certain niche of guys. Like I wasn't with I was kind of between the athletes and the nerds because I was in a baccalaureate, international baccalaureate programs, college prep, kind of for eggheads. There's some governor's kids in this program, all that kind of stuff, though. Yeah, so between that and then, sports, I played basketball, I wrestled. I had to pick one of those. At then I was a football player. I did some boxing.
Damn.
I was all over the place. And I was a smart student, but I wasn't necessarily a good student, right?
Mm.
So I was good until I got to the point where natural ability didn't take me as far as it had my entire life. I was always a kid that tested like in the 99th percentile, like all through middle school, elementary school, that kind of thing. And so what I didn't realize until probably 3 years into high school, all these other kids actually go home and study. It was a foreign concept. I never had to study. So like, how are they just understanding this chemistry? I don't get it. And I didn't realize it was like such an alien thing, kind of that blind spot. You don't know what you don't know, that people actually go home, they do homework and they study. No idea. I mean, it's
that's a real thing. No.
yeah. I was like, oh, wait, you did what? It was from overhearing kids talk about it. Interesting. I don't know, man. But yeah, man, that was me, man. I dabbled in some things that weren't quite on the right side of rules. But I always had a pretty good boundaries. I knew how far not to take things. I did stupid things like everybody else. But.
Dude, that's so cool. I love asking that question because, I feel like there might be some kind of misconceptions out there of if you're like successful or you got a business, like you probably grew up in that, or you probably like are an entrepreneur. You're in high school or little. Yeah, it's not always that way. Sometimes they're like there's people who are kind of like more the misfit side in high school and doing crazy things, and then once they get into professional life, what was that like coming out of like high school for you? Did you like know what you wanted to do? Did you think you were going to do real estate, or like did you like the entrepreneurship? Like what were you thinking coming out of high school?
So coming out of high school, man, this is so crazy, man. Let me tell you how I ended up going to college, right? So I'm in this program that you're supposed to be. It's like the top students, whatever is based on your, how you came in high school. And nobody ever had a conversation with me about even going to college, right? The counselor, nothing. I took some tests, and there's some military guys in my house trying to get me to go to the military. And I was so green. I remember I got a letter from Carnegie Mellon. And I thought, these guys don't even have a football team or a good football team. I'm not going there. I didn't know anything, right? I was so green. First one in my family to go to college, right? So there was nobody to refer to, or defer to. And I remember I was just talking about this the other day. Going to ASU, Arizona State University, at that time, I think had like 75, 80,000 students. It's
massive.
Yeah, it's the city. And I remember being on the street that runs, basically parallel and buttresses up against the university. I remember asking for directions from a lady. Hey, do you know where ASU is? And she looked at me like, you got to be bunking me, right? Like, either you're an idiot or this is a terrible joke.
No.
I didn't even know where the school was, right? I think I'd been to it once ever. Did no prep. But going into college, man, I had no idea. There was nobody really talked about what I wanted to do. And I just wanted to soak it in. I don't think I wanted a particular job or career. I always liked science. But I'd never been on a plane. I'd never traveled anywhere. I just wanted to kind of, it was kind of a mind expanding experience for me. Because I'm seeing guys from all over. First time I met somebody from Miami. So I met somebody from, the Middle East. I met, you start meeting all these different people and you realize how much bigger the world is than what you experienced. And in fact, the only way I ended up there, me and my best friend were at a party, some guy who's, he's a doctor now, but his four brothers and father were all lawyers. And we got invited to this party that kind of wasn't even our circle, but we were just kind of popular kids. So we got to tag along. I guess it's kind of how it worked out. And we overheard people talking about college prep. And I remember turning to him and saying, dude, have you start sending out any letters? No, neither one of us had done anything. And that was our aha light bulb. Oh, you have to do additional things to go to college.
Oh, shit.
We had no idea. And nobody in our families was telling us. I know any white collar people. None. I didn't know any of them. And so it was just this whole new world that I'm navigating, figuring out. I mean, there's a lot of people that I knew ran sideline businesses that don't actually exactly pay taxes. If you follow me.
Yeah, I got you.
And so that was kind of the world I went into. I was thrust into this whole new reality. So when I went to college, I didn't have a particular job that I wanted to do.
Is that why you love Breaking Bad, by the way? Is that
it could be, man. It really could be. It could be. It could be, dude. I just knew that I wanted to I finally picked a major because they said, look, you've been here long enough, you got to tell us what you want to do. And so I got forced to pick something, and I just wanted to have something with as broad applications as it could. In college, you wouldn't believe it, man. I was I kind of had some bad boy things that I was doing. I was also like a producer, right? I was an MC. I had a clothing line. I was doing all kind of things, man. So
yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. A job afterward wasn't really even a thought until.
Damn. So here you come, like out of high school, you're like, you play sports, you were kind of popular, like you had things going on, but it wasn't like. You weren't really like thinking like, okay, I'm going to go into this field and I'm going to do this and I'm going to like earn money and study. You're just kind of like going with the flow and, you probably started some MC stuff and this and that. And what was the moment that shifted for you? Or was it a series of moments that you were like, okay, now I got to like, let me jump into something and take it serious, or let me like, all right, money and career, this stuff's kind of important. Like, let me focus on that. Was it like a moment? Was it like a couple different things that happened to you? What was that? Oh, I remember very clearly. It was a defining moment, man. There was this girl that started school named Raul Buller. And she was kind of there's this old show called Blossom, where there's this really weird kind of nerdy girl. But I saw this girl that looked like her walking around, and me and my fraternity brother introduced ourselves because she just looked lost, out of place. And we became friends. Well, about a year and a half later, she's telling me about this internship that she's doing. And she says, "B, you can make a whole lot of money." And I'm going, at this time, I'm hand to mouth. I'm paying I have a little part-time job, and I'm paying bills, selling beats and things like that. And she says, "Hey, I said, well, what are you doing?" It's pharmaceutical sales. I'm like, never heard of that. What is that? Didn't have a clue. Remember, super green. And she says, "Yeah, I'm working for this company, pharmaceuticals." So I said, "Okay, I'll keep that in mind." Maybe 2 years later, because even after that, I get introduced to a girl. There's two of them.
One of them, it's the first time I get a job. I met a girl at the bus stop who was hiring. She worked for the city. She hires me. I was working in the call center. At the time, it was the first time I ever had a job where somebody just said, hey, do this, and then check in with me. And I think at this point, I'm like,
nice.
21. And so I go to work and I'm sitting there and I'm going, you mean nobody's breathing down my neck? I only saw her once or twice a week. It changed everything about how I thought about work. My mom, what I didn't realize when I was growing up, my mom basically worked on an assembly line at a microchip company. I always thought, because of the name of the company, it was a higher level job than what it was. And as I became an adult, I realized, she just works as part of this, as part of the machine to take care of us. So when I went to this job and, everybody kind of just came and went, there was no scheduled lunchtime. It was mind expanding. There's just, because everybody I knew always had the type of job where you go in, you punch a clock, somebody tells you what to do, you take a break. That's what I knew that was reality. So that was the first thing that got me thinking differently. I said, wait a minute. Okay, so I continued on through that job through the degree. The girl I met that was in pharmaceuticals reaches back to me and says, hey, I think you'd be really good for one of these jobs. And she introduces me to somebody via email at the time and says, hey, I think you should apply and get it. At that point, I think there might be real money in, it's a life-changing thing. So I transitioned from the job that I was working with city government into pharmaceutical sales. But even that transition was crazy. That was the moment that something clicked. Yeah.
So it was actually when they gave you more freedom in the workplace that you started thinking like, damn, it's not like work is not what because there is many jobs that are 9 to 5 or which I don't think is a horrible thing, by the way. I think that everyone should either start there, or everyone should be aware that it exists.
Yeah.
But that's crazy that it's funny, like you got a little bit of freedom in this job and then you met that girl and it's like, oh shit, like maybe working is not this like strict thing, and it could be something that you can make more, maybe like more of your time with it.
Yeah, it was mind blowing. I mean, wait, so I haven't seen you for 4 days and everybody just trusts that I'm coming here and really there's no time card. It was everybody kind of comes and goes, and as long as what you've produced is what we need when we need it, she didn't really care when I came. And that started the shaping of my philosophy, how I work with my company now. To this day, it's stuck with me. Or it's more about, well, what are your results? You can get it done in 5 hours. Really, I don't need you to be sitting there watching the clock for 3 more hours. You're done. Earned it.
I'm the same. That's so cool. And definitely want to hit on that. Dude, and so out of all that, how did you end up finding real estate? Like how long did it take, or what was that journey like?
Dude, so I'll tell you, man, it's the funniest story. So I got fired, right? I got fired, and Rita, my partner, got fired back-to-back days, March 23rd and March 24th of 2015, I believe it was.
No, both you guys?
Yeah, both of us.
So you worked in the same company or different companies?
No, we did it. That's the crazy thing. So she knew hers was scheduled. It was a layoff. It was okay. So yeah, we met when we both worked in a pharmaceutical company, same company, and she knew there was a layoff coming. So hers was planned. Mine was I got called to a meeting down to because the kind of work I was doing at that point, I've been in sales since like 2000, 2001, but even before then, I'd been selling things since like the second grade, right? Drawing candy and stuff. Anyway, I get a call down. I think I'm going to a meeting. I'd been hired, me and 2 other people, to build a new territory for a company that was kind of on the bubble, struggling. And that was my bread and butter, is to go in and fix companies or territories or areas that were struggling. And I had a pretty good track record of doing this. I drive down. I've been on a call with another guy, one of the other guys that had been hired for, and he's like, yeah, I'm heading down to Tucson now. I get down there, and I'm looking for his car. I remember asking the VP, I said, hey, where's such and such? Oh, he's not around. I said, that's funny. I was just on the phone with him. Oh, okay. So I go in, walk in the office, and I see HR sitting in this room. And I instantly know, okay, well, I don't see his car, and I'm sitting in a meeting with HR. And so what happened is they found an older guy who'd been in the territory, more experienced guy who had this book of business, who they were able to double his salary and still pay him less than what they were paying the 3 of us. It was a business decision. I go, I'm not even mad at you. I get it. Like, cut your costs, and instantly you jumpstart and somebody who can hit the ground running. And so that was, hey, you're fired. Now take the hour drive back up from Wildcat Country. Yeah. So I'm like, it was a 15-minute meeting. tops, drove down for an hour and a half. Yeah, you don't work here anymore. Go back home. So I remember the call. I'm like, hey, so guess what? I'd been fired before. So that's a whole nother story, but we can get into it more. But, so it wasn't a devastating thing. Had some money set aside, and it was like, okay, let's take some time and figure out what I'm going to do. And it was kind of, at that point, I felt like I was moving to a point in life where this had happened enough times, especially when you're in sales, you cost the most when things change. If there's a cost savings measure, a lot of times the folks that cost the most, you're getting looked at. So I didn't want to be in a position where, I said, do I want to be the guy that's 40, 45, or whatever, looking over my shoulder? Because I always remember the older guys where I worked in previous companies early in my career, they always kind of just tried to not be seen. Head down. Not, and I never wanted to be that guy. I was I got a little bit more piss and vinegar than me than to be that guy. And I'm just not made that way. So I'm like, they'll always be a target of me because I'm vocal. If something doesn't make sense, I'm going to ask questions or I'm not going to do it. And so, it was really the decision to, about 2 months later, it was watching those shows that everybody else is watching. The HGTV shows. It's like, I think that would be fun. Want to flip a house? Yeah, I think so. And I waited. All right, 3 days later, got our first house. So it was really a time of decision to let's flip houses. It was a 3-day period.
And how'd you find that? Like, what do you mean that? Like, you went over so much and just like people, there's so many people that see a show or see that, and then they wait years before they find their house, or they never do it, or they go to 16 seminars before they do it. And like, you watch a show, you don't know anything, and you
at all
get a house, and you get a house 3 days later. Like, what the fuck? Like, how did
I
that
didn't even
happen?
know there was a such thing as seminars or gurus or trainers. I had no idea. I didn't know any of that stuff existed.
And how'd you find the house?
Huh?
And so how'd you find that deal?
So I had a friend, man, who I went to college with, who had way back before the crash. I remember he was in real estate pretty heavy. He was flipping houses and all that kind of stuff. And it was just a foreign thing to me. I had dabbled a little bit. I had a couple of rentals before, but nothing. I didn't know anything. I bought terribly, like everybody else. I bought and I said, okay, this is negative cash flowing, but houses are going up $10,000 a month. I'll just hang on to it for a few months and sell it. Great plan, right? And I lost my job.
Bulletproof.
Bulletproof. What could go wrong? So I lose my job. The tenants lost their jobs. I had savings set aside. I was floating it anyway. That went bad. But I remembered him from that. So I reached out to him and I just said, hey, look, man, I'm looking to flip a house. You know anybody? Yeah, I know an agent. I know somebody who might be able to get you one. Let's have lunch. So we go and sit down and have lunch. Run comps, have never had any training. Look at it, run numbers based on what sold and go, I think this is a good deal. And right there on the spot, it's like, all right, let's buy it. So our first flip that we bought, $405,000 is what we paid for it.
What?
Dude, we did a lot of things.
Wow. That is insane.
Yeah, $405,000 purchase price. And it was, all right, it looks really clean. We shouldn't have to do a whole lot to it. Keep in mind, we have no crews.
Nothing.
No, we have nothing. It's just us, and now there's this house. So, and just jumped right into it. So
ready, fire, aim type of model.
all of that, shot off toes and everything else.
That's so good.
Yeah. Man.
What did you make or lose on that house, by the way?
So we ended up, we didn't lose right away, but we lost. So it ended up being, probably 40 to 50K we lost.
Wow.
So what I didn't realize at the time when we bought it, it came from a wholesaler, most likely, right? Didn't know wholesalers existed at the time. We thought an agent bought it. So it only occurred later that there was a wholesaler. He must have gotten the house from a wholesaler, because when we reached out to this realtor again and said, hey, we're ready for our next one, he could never secure another house. And kind of a light bulb went off years later. Once I'm on this side of the table, I go, I gotta probably just tack this feel into a wholesaler's thing. But what we did, so we bought it in a nice development here, Mountain something. I can't remember the name of it. I just remember the address in North Mountain in North Scottsdale here. So what we didn't realize is the comps that we were looking at. So we bought it at 405. It was a super clean house. We figured we'd put 20 into it. We ended up putting about 25 into it. Comps were over 510, 520. What we didn't realize is there were some hills in the neighborhood, And the ones that sold in the 5s were a little bit up higher on the hill because you can get the view of the valley from it. Right. The ones that were in an area like ours were selling for about $450. So we didn't realize this. No experience. Remember, ready, fire, aim, however you said, it was.
Yeah.
So we got it done, did a pretty nice job, but then went through all the headaches of hiring people. But I realized very quickly, okay, we made a mistake. Not to mention it was a really exclusive neighborhood. They started building new construction across the street from the house where we were at. And so it turned a not busy street into a busy street. So that didn't help us, right? All these changes, things that happened. So I wanted to sell the house and just take a loss, move on to the next one. This is what happens. We couldn't come to agreement, so we held on to it, rented it at $1,000 a month loss for, 18 months or something like that. And that was that first lesson. But my thinking during that period of time was, okay, we've lost money on this. We need to do another flip. Because we didn't make that much. I didn't even think about it. Dude, think about this. So like football, right? So, there's this old game, Tecmo Bowl, right? Super old school Nintendo game where if the defense picks the same play as you, it just blows up. You have no chance, right? In real football, sometimes you just lose on a play, right? But I've got on average 75 offensive plays a game.
All right.
Every now and then I'm going to lose 2 yards on a play. That happens. But I get 74 more plays. So, okay, I took a lot. Did it blow out my knee? No, I can go to the next play. I'm still in the game. Let's run the next play. So we jump right into another one right after that.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
I love that. Yeah, dude, I love that. It's such a good philosophy, man. So much about that story I love because I think people can get value that, dude, you kind of, even going back from like high school, like you just started as a kid, man, just messing around, doing what you had to do. Then you figured out like, oh shit, I have to study to compete in the high level. Then you go to college, like, I don't really know what my major is, but I'm here. And then you start working. But you know what I'm saying? Like the whole time you were just kind of finding your way. It wasn't like you knew, okay, I'm going to flip houses, I'm going to kill it. You were just kind of like finding your way. And you saw this opportunity, you jumped on it. You did, you lost 30 or 40,000, but then you jumped on more opportunities. You're like, I think there's something I could do here. So like, if you're listening to this and you either don't know what to do or you don't know how to keep going, like, dude, like just listen to a story like Brian's. Like, you don't have to have all the answers. And even if you lose the first time, that might be like the beginning of an amazing like journey to find out how to win and never lose again.
Right.
Like, I'm sure probably now you've lost on very little houses after that.
Yeah, we haven't had another loss. That was the one and only.
Exactly.
That was the one and only. Now we had one where we've had one flop, but we still made. We were only going to make $6,000 on this house, and then at the last minute, an appraiser comes in and we made $300.
Oh.
But
nice.
But we're like, we didn't lose, but it's definitely a flop. But we called this house Hell House, right? Like during this house, it just wouldn't go away. It was the nicest house in the area, and it was a can't lose deal.
Damn.
And the first guy that puts when we got selling, I'll make it real quick. But so we had a new agent that we're working with, young guy, real ambitious, real eager to please. So we gave him the listing. When he got his first offer on the house, he changed the status to pending before they put any money down, anything like that. That's a no-no. We don't do that. We don't change status until there's been some money exchanged, right? But he does it anyway. These guys don't want to put any money down. They're demanding a bunch of inspections and want access. And we're going, wait, you don't even have any skin in the game. So we canceled that contract. We don't think that helped us because you've now had a canceled contract. People see that. The next time it went under contract, the buyer discovered he had a terminal illness.
What?
Yeah, so he didn't want to leave his wife with a mortgage, so he cancels the contract. So now when you look at this property that's listed, it's got activity. It's got 80% more activity than any other house in the neighborhood. But now it's fallen out twice, right? So then we're going along. They close the roads. It's in a military town. They close a bunch of roads that lead to the military base and reroute them right in front of the house. So now the house is on a busy street.
Oh my God.
Right. So
that's like, man, luck of the draw there.
Dude, it was like, what? Then as we're getting ready to close, it finally goes under contract again. And this is in one of those markets where the leaves actually change. And, so the backyard is covered in leaves. They discover there's an old propane tank buried in the ground that has to be removed. Nobody saw it. So we're until all this happened. So I mean, this house has been fully rehabbed. Everything we don't know that. So then that pops in. Yeah. So we have to go through that. We narrowly avert having to do all this EPA soil testing, all that other stuff, which could have been 10,000 plus. About to sell it, and the appraiser comes in, kills it at the last minute. You're only getting $300. And then the next week, a house one street over sells for the price that we had ours contracted for. That extra 6,000.
No.
Yeah. So I'm like,
oh damn! You know what? It was a learning lesson, man. That's it.
Dude, it was.
That's funny. Dude, so let's fast forward now. Like, what is your business like today? You know, like you went through these ups and downs. I know we were talking before. You know, I hit record here, and you're doing everything like virtually. So, like, I think that's so interesting. So what does your business look like now, as far as like your team, your marketing, those types of things?
So right now there's myself, CFO partner, COO, one full-time acquisition, part-time ac, hiring 1 to 2 more acquisition managers right now. And then we had 4 VAs and then an agent who works almost dedicated with us. So that's what our team looks like right now.
Wow. Good. And all virtual, right? You have no office or anything like that?
Yeah, no office. This is this is
the
it,
crib.
Right? Yeah, and we've never had office, man. Did I ever tell you how we got into virtual?
No, I don't think I know that.
So it was on accident, right? The first wholesale deal we ever did was for $25K, right?
Wow, fucking awesome.
Yeah. We got a call from a lady who, and I almost messed it up. Got a call from a lady who's in Lake Havasu City, Arizona. And she said, "Are you the guys, you buy certain type of not pretty houses?" And I'm like, "No, I'm sorry, ma'am. That's not us. You got the wrong number." She goes, "No, you guys came out to my house, sat down." And I'm going, "No, ma'am, I haven't been to your house." And then something clicks. "Well, shut your mouth. That's what you do." I said, "Well, yeah, actually, we do buy those kinds of houses, right?" This is out open. So this lady calls us thinking we were somebody else who had already been to her house. We negotiate this house. There's plenty of meat on it. We get under contract, and we're looking at the dollar signs going, wait, we can make 20, 25K here. But it's Lake Havasu, Arizona. It's 4 hours away. So that's how we got into virtual. We have this contract, and we have no idea what to do with it. So we started working backwards. Okay, we've got a house. We know it's a good deal. Figure it out. And that was the very first one. And then so from there, once we got that sold, we said, well, what's the difference if it's 4 hours away or if it's a 4-hour flight away? We never saw this house. We never saw the buyer. We never saw the seller. Yeah. Well, we could just do this again. The distance doesn't really matter. We really fell into it. It was just dumb luck. At that time, we were only flipping. And we had gotten to marketing and doing SEO and pay-per-click to find our own deals because we don't want to keep paying wholesalers.
But really, so the intent was always, you were always flipping. And then this call came out of the blue, either from your online or wherever.
Yeah.
And that's how you got into virtual wholesale. And then
it was
eventually that's how you found, Kent and all these guys.
Yeah. So the funny story, finding Kent and all those guys, and this was the seed was planted because I found Kent and everybody else right before that. That's the first time I heard of wholesaling. Mm-hmm. And really the way I found them was just dumb luck again. It doesn't sound like I'm a very good planner as I tell this story. Right?
I see that. It sounds like, man, like good fortune's coming your way. I don't know if you got like a good
I remember I was at a RIA. I discovered bigger pockets because I used to have a downtown condo loft. I think kind of like that really cool space you got over there, right by the courthouse. Okay. And we used to try to split up and go and buy things at auction. It just didn't work. It was just a good old boy network that would kind of, work together and price everybody out of deals. And we were we had no business really trying to compete with those guys, and we never got a deal there. But two blocks away from me was a hotel where I got one of those flipper flop tart Christina things ago. Come take a look at it. So I walk over, and it's the whole, get in here, pay all this extra money later. And so I start Googling them, trying to figure out, okay, is this legit? I kind of wanted to do it. Rita was like, yeah, I don't think so. We've discovered bigger pockets, and we think it's his website with like 15 people on it. Never heard of it. Only discovered it because we were trying to find information on this flipper flop education seminar.
Got it. Like a review.
Yeah. I was looking for a review, and I saw that, and there was somebody in bigger pockets who reviewed them. So then I get into this site, and I go, holy. So from that point, it's start digging through podcasts, just figure this out. And at this point, this is the first time I discovered there's education, right? I had no idea. So what had happened is we got to a point where we had a few flips going. I think we had like 4 or 5 going at one point. Yeah, and this is like our first year. And I was at a RIA meeting. This lady stands up, and I just wanted to meet more people. Now I understand there are people that can give you guidance. The lady stands up and says, my husband and I have spent $90,000 in real estate education. Instantly, I'm going to meet her. Like, I'm going to talk to this lady afterwards. And as she goes on, she goes, and, we haven't done a first deal yet, and at that point, I'm blown away. Because to me, that's life-changing money, $90,000 at this point where I'm at in the business.
Yes.
$90,000, you haven't done a deal. The next day, I see some Facebook ad. Kent pops up and his shiny head comes on. And I had just been on a quest to find my tribe or find people who could help us, because a lot of people that had started at the same time as us, we outgrew them. And there was nobody really to lean on. And so I still hadn't heard of wholesaling. I make a decision from seeing this ad. I'm going to San Diego. There's a meeting in San Diego. I drive, I think it's the next day or 2 days later. I go to San Diego with no plan. And that's why I discovered I'd never heard of Sean. I didn't know Sean lived here, Sean Terry. I didn't know Justin, all those guys. They lived in Phoenix. And I only heard of them when I drove to San Diego and meet them in San Diego. And that's where I learned about wholesaling. I had no idea wholesaling was even a thing. We were just trying to find our own houses because we didn't realize this was a whole full industry. That, wholesaling. Oh, that's why these guys are selling houses. Didn't even realize it had a name.
Dude, that's so crazy. That's such a good story. Like, it just shows how action, like massive action, just trumps anything. It's so sad to hear that like $90,000 lady story, because I hear it quite often since I run like that meetup, and people come in like, damn, well, you shared here, I paid $30,000 in a seminar for, and probably you hear it all the time. And in Arizona, there's like tons of people selling stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
But bro, it makes me smile because, man, just taking action. Like Brian, all right, he lost some money in his first deal, but he took action and kept taking action. And not only did you take action to find deals, which is very important, you took action to learn more, and you took action to go to meetups. So although like, it's funny, like all these events sound unplanned and kind of out of the blue, but actually yourself in these positions, right? You were going to meetups, you were talking to agents, you were talking to people, you were like listening to podcasts. So you were training yourself to find the right opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny you mentioned that, because when you mentioned agents too, and I didn't realize it at the time, right? It was just, hey, put yourself in position, and that probably had more confidence than I should have. Because
sales guy, man.
Yeah, that's it. Sales guy. It's in the industries that I've been out, I routinely won some sort of award, a President's Club or Rookie of the Year or something like that. So I said, okay, business development, I can do that. But I think the one thing though, even though I thought I could do it, I was humble enough to know that I have a gaping blind spot and I don't know how big it is, but I'm sure it's pretty substantial, because guys spend 30, 40, 50 years learning continually in this industry. And here I am a year. I've got to think, I mean, that's a lifetime. At that point, it was older than I was. At this point, I've got to think there's a whole lot for me to bite into. And then my thought process was, because I don't tell a lot of people this, when we joined that mastermind, we didn't even have the money to do it.
Right.
We had some flips going, and I had a relative who had promised to loan us some money. And he ghosted me a few days before.
No.
Yeah. A few days before he was supposed to fund what we were doing. And I made some commitments based on that money that was supposed to be coming. So I'm looking at the specter of, I'm going to have 10 or 11 angry guys looking at me come Friday. And, I got to figure something out. So I've only told this story, I think, to one other person. Both of us took our cars to a payday loan place and took out title loans to pay everything.
Way. Oh,
yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was like, figure this out. And, we only needed the money for 10 days or so. But it was during that time, it's like, I go out here and I realize I need to be a part of people who can help me condense time. And I called a friend of mine and I borrowed money to join a mastermind.
Damn, that's cool, man. I love that. Yeah. And bro, that's such a good story. There's so many like golden nuggets, I think, that like you just kind of just brushed over. I think it's like in your nature, and the way you say a story, it's so like intriguing. But dude, so let's kind of now you're in this space, you're in this world. So something I've always found intriguing with you is like how you've been able to manage your advertising, your online advertising. Because I think although like internet is very, obviously the most popular thing ever, but people always have so many questions like PPC, like, oh man, it's going to cost me a fortune, or I don't know how to manage it, but like, aren't the leads really expensive? But like, what about my website? Does it convert? Do I have to make it pretty? Like, I don't want you to answer all these things, but how did you start on that journey to like learn that? And like, what does your like PPC kind of look like today? Or like, maybe what are some tips you can give, kind of like over the top tips you can give people that can help them either get started or make their PPC better or their like online advertising better?
The first thing I would say that if you're a newer person, you don't have much budget, don't do it. It's the same as people when they're first starting out and they want to send mail. And the 3 or 4 people that have all asked me about sending mail and I told them don't do it and they did it, 3 of them ended up going back to jobs. And one, and the other one, I mean, right now is probably still eating spam. Like it can be pricey, but you have to think of it in terms of relative to what is, if it costs me $2,000 to get a deal, well, I was paying a wholesaler $14, $15. The decision to start finding myself, we paid a wholesaler $31,000 assignment fee on a deal that we only made $30,000 on. So the thinking was, well, if I'm spending this money anyway, how many deals could I get if the $30,000 was me learning how to do it?
Got it.
So that was the first thinking. But how it's set up. So basically, one of the main things that I would tell people to do if you're trying to pick a market where to do it, I don't do primary markets. I don't do pay-per-click in primary markets anymore.
Yep.
Some guys do. But secondary and tertiary. And what I mean by that, cities that are under, for me, my number I like under like 400,000 people, works really, really well there. I also look at cities where, the big guys, when the iBuyers were there, where I wasn't competing with those guys dollar for dollar. We used to, but what I noticed that happened sometime mid last year, I saw our cost per lead, our cost per click triple. And so I knew instantly some of the big iBuyers had moved in with endless pockets and they're just spending money. So the main thing I look at is pick narrow niches. There's a few keywords that everybody uses. We buy houses. 99.9% of the website's going to use that. But pick some niches. Pick phrases like, what would you say? They're called long tail keywords.
Yeah.
How do I sell my house fast by myself? And make that a keyword. Pick some narrow ones where, if people are looking for very specific things, then those will trigger your ads versus the ones that everybody else is competing for. And then look at, like I said, some of those smaller markets, because it might cost you $90 a click in one city, and the same click is $8 in another smaller city where other people aren't marketing that same way. So for a new person, I would say do that. And if you're managing it yourself, how to learn, that I learned through on an online course, Udemy, for $9.99.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
Of course, $9.99, and then I played with it. Of course, I had some losses along the way because
of course
you have to learn, do, and review. Learn it. Okay, let me practice. Did that kind of work out? And you tweak it, and then over time, you end up with really good campaigns that have been vetted and tested against different market conditions and things like that. But if you're setting it up yourself, I think it's a good idea, even if you're not going to manage it yourself, to invest in learning. Go do one of those courses. If you don't spend $10 and the 15, 20 hours of course time to learn, you're putting yourself at risk, to when you pay somebody to manage it, you don't speak the language.
Yeah.
You don't speak the language. You don't know how do you manage the people that are managing your campaigns when all they have to do is throw out some googly techno speak and you have no idea what they're talking about. You nod and say, yeah, take more of my money.
Yeah, no, it's, man, that's so awesome. $10, invest $10, just learn the keywords. That happened to me. I hired a company, I guess, which I won't say on the air here, but basically they just took my money. And it happens to people who just want to get in the space. And that's why I've been intrigued on how you've been able to do it. And pretty much just learning, trial and error. As far as like the website, Brian, do you use a carrot site or did you make your own site or what was that?
No, it's a carrot site. I don't have any technical background or know how to make any sites or anything like that. So I use a carrot site. And what I did is I looked at a lot of reviews, and what I really liked about them you know, I don't want to do commercial for them, even though I think they have a great product, is it's tested on conversion, not just how pretty does it look, does it convert? And that's all I really wanted to do. And I think what people don't understand is you can have a site, but you have to it has to have a lot of opportunities for people to opt in, because people have very short attention spans and they don't like what they read in the first 2 sentences, they're out. They get halfway down the page. A lot of times we're just too lazy to scroll back up to fill our information in. So if it's not right there in the middle of the page again, they're out. Like people bounce rates are insane because people were so used to getting things like that, right?
Yep.
So it's a carrot site. And then I did some customization so that the wording's not the same as on everybody's. Because what people don't understand, a lot of times what people do is they'll go and just use one right out of the box, which can work, or they'll copy somebody's page that they like. What will happen is Google will look at your page. It's basically a duplicate of somebody else's if you just copy it. And it's basically just archived the way where it doesn't show up really well in search, because Google doesn't want to offer people 50 results that are exactly the same. There's no point in showing you 50 things that are all identical. So it shows you one, and then yours kind of gets lost in the sauce. If you change it up and you change 60 to 70% of the wording, just paraphrase it. Your own wording, you get a much better stick. So we use that because it was easy. It was fresh out of the box. I think I don't know if they still offer it, but their single page was $49 at the time. We were doing a $99 plan so we could have 3 sites. And it was just the value when I thought about it. If I tried to build this myself, somebody quoted me $5,000-$10K. And I just, and then what? How do I get people to it? So one part of it is having a site that people can go and opt in. But the other part is then, of course, marketing and driving people to it, because I think people don't understand those are 2 different things. Having the site, nobody's just going to find your bottle in the ocean. Like, it's got to be steered. You got to steer them towards it. And then the second part is, how do I effectively manage that? Because I'll tell you, my goal with pay-per-click was to farm it out. Once I had done it for a while, I understood it, and I hired some other guys, and they understood the technical aspect of pay-per-click, but they didn't understand the emotional part of what we do. So they were really good at like selling skateboards, per se, but they didn't understand a motivated seller, a distressed seller. And so I ended up taking that back. I did hire somebody out for about 6 to 8 months, and I just didn't like the results, and I felt like I got better results when I was doing it. So I took it back.
That's good, man. Yeah, you got to be really mindful because the online world can get very expensive. If you're paying for, and let me back up for a quick second. If you're listening to this and kind of a little lost, pay-per-click is basically, it's a platform that Google offers that you can pay to advertise your website on the top of Google, and it says like ads or whatever. And you pretty much pay for every click, and it's a bidding system. It's a little complex, so I'm simplifying it here a little bit. But more of the story is you pay to have people click on your website with using certain words to get to the top, and you bid on that. And what Brian's saying is, cool, getting people to click it is one thing, but then getting people to put in their information so that you can call them or offer them your services is a different thing. And you have to be very aware of that, because as you're paying for these clicks, the costs keep adding up, and your credit card's put in there. So the money's leaving your account very quickly. That click is gone. And I'll tell you, one market I went into, and I got my first $100 click, and I had to reevaluate. I was like, wait. Yeah, I wasn't there. I wasn't there yet. But you definitely have to stay on top of it. Yeah, and what's interesting now is like if you're we're recording this Corona times, or like towards the end of Corona times, I would say cost per clicks and cost per leads online have gone down a little bit. That Brian was telling me, because some of the big players like Zillow and the iBuyers are out of the market or out of the online market. And so it might be a good opportunity to learn the space in your market or in tier markets, and just maybe test it out with whatever money you have. Yeah. But I would say, learning from you or kind of hearing you speak a lot about it, it takes quite a bit of like know-how and management to really get the best bang for your buck, huh?
It does. I'm at a point now, building it is what takes long. I'm at a point now where I manage ours, and it takes me about an hour a week.
That's not bad.
It's not bad now, but when I was learning, I was spending 12, 13 hours a day learning. Yeah. Like, I invested the time in it because I thought about, I'm one of those guys, I'm one of those weirdos that dollarizes everything. Like, I was a terrible employee if you weren't paying me really, really well, because I dollarize everything. I'm like, okay, you're going to pay me $15. Okay, that's $5 for every 20 minutes of my life broken down. And I'm like, that's not worth it. I start doing the math. But what I start thinking about is, okay, so what's an hour of return here? Like, so you're telling me I could spend $300, $400 and then I end up making 15, 20, 30 times that back. I can make 6x my money back on a deal. Okay. I think the adjustment that people have to make is some things you get right away. I give you money, I bought something, I get it back. The mental hurdle, I think, for a lot of people is you don't know when the pay return comes. And so it's hard for people to watch, because they bill you in $500 increments. So if you're seeing, like, for one of our peaks, we're watching it happen a couple of times a day, $500. I'm looking at the Amex and I'm going, okay, even at that point, it starts to make you think about what you're spending versus you're just doing installments towards your deal.
Yeah.
I think that's tough for people when they spend money out, there's nothing coming back. It's a payment plan to your deal, and that's
a really good
$500.
Yeah. Brian, what's your take on Facebook? Have you messed with that a little bit? Do you like it? Do you not like it? What's your take on that? Because I've heard many different things. I've tried it in the past. I didn't really get a deal, but then again, I didn't spend a ton of money on it. Yeah. I hear people crushing it. I hear people saying it doesn't work. You're good on that world. Like, what do you think about it?
I think one of the main things, again, your digital space. So Facebook is pretty cheap, right?
Yeah.
Anything that's cheap, though, the quality, I think, and it's obviously not ironclad. This isn't an absolute, but typically, the less it costs to market something, the more you're going to have to sift through in terms of leads. The more you're going to have to decipher in terms of what are the quality of this lead, right?
Yes.
You think about Facebook, people aren't there. You've got two different things. And what people don't understand, I think, about online marketing and digital marketing is you've got push through and pull through marketing. Pull through is I'm already looking for you. Oh, wait, I see an ad that makes sense. Okay, here you go. That's your Google pay-per-click. It only shows people who are looking for it, right? Facebook, somebody's there looking at cat videos, right? And then you go seeing your We Buy Houses ad pop up. And it's a lot of times it's an opt-in of convenience, right? I'm not doing anything. I'm sitting here. This ad pops in. I click it. Half my information is already filled out. Okay, it took me 10 seconds. There's not a lot of effort to opt into that, right? You weren't looking for it. It kind of popped up. Ooh, a squirrel. Somebody sent some information. That's people, right?
Yeah,
so, the quality of those leads a lot of times, because it's so easy to enter your information and it just interrupted their day. That's what we're calling interruption marketing. You're looking for something else that pops up. People are going to enter that. With that being said, I do find that with the cost of lead makes it worth doing, because, you can be getting, $1.40 a click, 70 cents per click, something like that. And you'll have as long as you have a good system to sift through the opt-ins, you can get returns on it. But again, I look at secondary and tertiary markets for that too, because in the major cities, like here, my news feed, when I go on Facebook, every 6th or 7th thing is real estate. They've targeted the hell out of me. So all I see is real estate all day long. How would I decide which one of those ads I want to pick? So it's really tough unless you have amazing copy and just a lot of money to throw at it. I would look at what are some of the smaller markets, right? And if you're going to go into that space, it's a better spin than pay-per-click right out the bat if you don't know what you're doing yet.
Yeah, no, that's a very good take on that. Awesome, man. I got like 1 or 2 last questions, one big question and then one little practical question. We'll wrap this thing up. Dude, when I tell you $100 million, when I say that, like, in your mind, what is like the next, like, or it's like $100 million play you think of in your mind in real estate, out of real estate? It's either worth 100 mil or make 100 mil. Where does your mind go?
Gosh, so there's a couple, man. Just solving problems for folks, right? So one of my things that I'm thinking about is kind of what so I think a play for a lot of folks is something that we started doing. I don't know if this is the $100 million play, but it's a play that protects you a little bit more than a lot of things that we're doing, right? So for me, it's obviously some of the creative stuff that people are doing. Seller finance is kind of for me in real estate, the $100 million play. We're getting into some land and stuff like that. But the thing I like about seller finance, check this out, this return. We bought a house for $6,000, right? We put 10 into it. put it on seller finance for $45,000, right? The down payment was like $8,000. So already your purchase price is back. The interest rate is I think it was 9.9 or something like that. That $16,000 would turn into $85,000 during the course of them paying off that house. Right? Wow. I don't have any of the headaches of, dealing with renters, things breaking at your house. All of those things. Now, at the end, I lose the asset, but do I really care? If I'm buying a $6,000 house, at some point, there's going to be a lot of maintenance that I got to go back and it's going to recapture a lot of earned anyway. So I don't want to be on the back end of that dealing with that. Right. But I think that's a really good play when you're finding some of these houses. And if you can hold off and you don't need to get a big bang right away, just look at that return. It's 500% return on your money. That's
actually on the call we were on yesterday. I heard Brett talking about something like that. And basically, if you're listening to this, number one, that's awesome. And where you find $6,000 houses in Miami ain't gonna happen. But no, but basically, what Brian's saying is like when he says seller finance is he said it beautifully. You buy the house, then what you do is you remodel it or you get it ready for someone else to buy it. Mm-hmm. They buy it, they put a down payment. You essentially become the bank, and you're protected by a note or a mortgage, whatever, or a contract for deed. You can get creative with that. And basically, they pay you, and you're the bank. And if they don't pay you, take the house back and sell it again.
Yeah, that's it. And you're one of the benefits too at a house at that price point is under a certain point, banks aren't financing, right? So you'd be surprised how many people walking around and have $15,000 or $20,000 in their pocket. There's a lot of people. People putting down $70,000, $80,000. There's a lot of people that have cash. We just don't know. They don't walk around advertising and have cash. But banks aren't going to write a loan for under $50K in some of these areas. It's right under that threshold. If somebody wants to come with cash, but do I have $45,000 sitting aside? No, well, somebody's got to buy this property. So you're able to do that. So other things that we're doing is positioning ourselves to be a solution because down the line, we'd like to start lending money and things like that. Mm-hmm. But one of the things we're doing right now is being able to find deals for people, position ourselves for people who are out of state who don't know how to do what we're doing. And so you can get a 5 cap in California, 4 cap in California, bigger spreads, more money, but you can't get some of the astronomical deals. Like we've got one we're getting ready to put out today. It's a 20 cap. Quite literally. Yeah. We've got one that we kept to ourselves. It's a 42.
Good no-brainer. You get your money back in 2 years.
Yeah. And people these had already been the remodel had been started when we bought them. They look good. They're not in terrible neighborhoods. Now, those are unicorns, but what we're doing is position ourselves to be able to find those for investors who live in different parts of the country who can't get those kinds of returns where they live, and then becoming a deal source for these guys. Some of them are turnkey. Some of them are, hey, look, we can build this out to where we can get a lot of the maintenance done. But if they're in good condition, property management's in place, and you can get these kind of returns. And what's your risk? If you live in a state where houses are $300,000, $400,000, and I'm telling you that the return that you can get for a $50,000 house is the same that you'd get if you bought a $200,000 house in your home market.
Yeah,
I mean it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. We've got one where we bought it at $21,000. It rents for $700, $750 a month. So it's essentially like having a $100,000 house that rents for $3,500 a month. I mean, it's the same math.
Interesting. No, that's really, if you're in a market like Miami, Arizona, there's a bunch of spots, California, New York,
we're pricey, man. We're pricey out here too.
Yeah. Arizona's getting pretty pricey. Yeah. If you're in these markets, you definitely should be looking at, if you want cash flow, you should be looking at stuff like Brian's saying. Dude, I love that. I love that model. Matt, one last thing. So I want to talk to kind of like the newer person out there. Let's say, Brian, Donald Trump wiped your shit. No more money in your accounts. Yeah. You got $100. We got a couple $100 in your pocket. Let's say $300. What would you do to get a deal? To be able to pay bills and kind of sustain a little bit? What would you do nowadays?
Dude, hang on to my money first off. First, don't do mail.
Yep. Agreed.
Don't do anything digital.
Agreed.
Don't try to go out and buy lists and skip trace. So the number one thing that I would do, here's what people don't realize. Most of the guys that are going out in running operations. We're buying thousands and thousands of records every so many days, every weeks, every month. If it shows up in public record, you're competing with guys who are buying 50, 60,000 records this month. And we've got people to dial. Where you have the unique advantage when you're a newer person is that you have expertise, local knowledge that a guy like me could never possibly have. I don't know what's happening in your own backyard from out of state or anywhere else. Number one thing I would tell people to do, our first deal that we sourced ourselves was from Driving for Dollars.
Really?
Yeah. Our first mail campaign, we sent out 450 pieces of mail because we had no idea what a large mail drop is supposed to look like. We found this house. We sent out 400 pieces of mail from Vistaprint, the cheesiest postcard you ever want to see in your life.
Wow.
A buyer calls us. A seller calls us. We go to the house. We rush to the house. There's another investor showing up. I know from my sales background, you need to move quickly. Anyway, we end up buying this house while this guy's here. Rita and I split these guys up, the husband and wife, so that this investor couldn't talk to either one of them. We end up getting the contract inked. We end up selling that house for $420,000. Right? But it was from Driving for Dollars. And if we had known then that you could just go on one of these free sites and call them, we would have just found it because nobody else knows this house. It's not on anybody's list yet. I'm looking for, signs. Are the fences run down? I don't know if people know how to identify properties in distress if they're newer. But, older cars, Buicks, almost always that owner of that Buick they're from, they've been here a while. Grass growing out through the driveway, tall weeds, mail stacked up in the yard, newspapers stacked up in the yard, cracked windows. Just it looks like somebody hadn't been there. And then just go on one of the free sites, True People Search or any of those, and just get their phone number and just call them. Play dumb, because when you're new, you are dumb, right?
I like that.
And people are kind to you when you call and you say, hey, look, we train our guys that when we're calling people like that, it's sound, have this nervous affect, right? Like in your voice, like, hey, so, I don't know if I'm calling the right person. Sound unsure about yourself. Hey, I'm just looking to buy a house. I like the area. I didn't know if you or anybody you knew in the area might be looking to sell a house, and just have a conversation. But the main thing is your mindset. Don't think I'm trying to get a house from somebody. Your main thing is locate it, call them, and then think about, just find out if there's a problem. What people do is they get hung up on trying to convince somebody who doesn't have a pain point or desire to sell. And they call them over and over. That person doesn't want to sell their house. Imagine if somebody called you and just actually to sell your house. You're never going to change.
Yeah.
But all you're looking to do is, I tell people, amateurs convince, professionals sort. And all you're looking to do is find somebody who has a problem that wants you to fix it. That's all you got to do. But you got to do enough of it. And people will say, hey, I made 40 calls this week. They ain't gonna cut it. They ain't gonna cut it. You gotta put enough time if you want to get out of a job. You got to think about what gets me out. So my number one thing would be drive. I only say that because I did it, and that's how the first one we ever got on our own. That's how we got it. Yeah, because it's not on anybody's list yet. Nobody else even knows this problem properly unless they live in the areas that you know.
Dude, that's good. But I mean, no judgment to any of the other people I've had on the show. I've had some badasses and rock stars, but that's probably the best answer for that question that I've gotten, because, I mean, if you're listening to this and you're kind of figuring out how to get your first deal, rewind that and just write that down on a piece of paper and do exactly what Brian. It's, you go out there, you find the houses that look bad, you go on a free site. And I love what you said at the beginning. I'd hold on to my money. So basically all that, and you're still not wasting any of the $300 you have in your pocket. So you go out to a nice dinner with your girl or your husband or whatever, and you'll be able to enjoy it. Because all that stuff, you might need to put some gas in the car or whatever. But
that's it.
All you got to do is drive around, probably within 5 miles of where you live, depending. I don't know how rural or not rural you are, but within 5 miles, you'll be able to find at least 30 to 50 houses that meet this criteria.
Can you see? And I didn't even have an app. I'm going to show you something. I don't know if you can see this.
Let me see
on my screen there.
Yeah, I see it.
Drive for dollar notes.
Wow.
And I was driving around in my car, just scroll through there, and there's all notes. Take pictures of it. It's funny. This picture I actually using some of my advertising.
No.
But just addresses from driving, and I mean, have some hustle about it. Because what guys do is they go, oh, it didn't work. And I'll tell you, I'm not a guy who coddles, right? If you're a guy, I'm telling you, this is what you need to do. My acquisition manager, I made him work for free for a month before I brought him on board. He's hanging bandit signs at night. But I told him, this is what I did. When we got our first batch of those signs, we would go out and hang some signs out, right? And then drive for dollars. Sometimes I would hang signs till like 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. I go, well, I might as well stay out. And then I would drive till 7, 8, 9, 10 in the morning until I got too sleepy to keep doing it and then go home. Like, that's the kind of grind. And when people go out and say, yeah, I made 40 calls this week, I ain't going to cut it. You got to get, like, it's simple, but it ain't easy. Yeah, and what you got to do is say, okay, I'm going to do this simple thing, and there's no guaranteed payoff, right? But think about it. I bought that house for $155. I sold it for $420. Nobody else knew about it other than this one guy. So, and then how do I sell it? That same neighborhood, are there dumpsters? Get the address, use the same free site, figure out who's already buying. So if I'm looking and I'm beating my head on the wall trying to figure out how am I going to sell it now? Well, if there are dumpsters in that neighborhood, one, it's a desirable area. And then two, from that, you already know who likes that neighborhood because there are dumpsters and signs already around. Drive the neighborhood, get the addresses, find out who owns those.
Love it, bro. Yeah. Damn, bro, Brian, that's an amazing answer. And it just sounds so cool when you say it. I don't know why. Something about it. It sounds so cool. Bro, man, it's awesome, man. I've appreciated all the stuff you said. There's definitely been some golden nuggets. I took a bunch of notes myself. If you're listening to this, you have so many step-by-step things in this episode. It's crazy. Dude, how can people kind of reach out to you or learn more from you, or maybe just follow you on some socials, or if you got some websites or something? Like, how do people kind of connect with you more?
Dude, they can hit me on Facebook, man. And I tell you, I've got an Instagram. I don't even remember what my Manley, but I don't even remember. I think it's Laptop REI Guy or something, but I might change it again. I check that less frequently, but I'll tell you, man, if people reach out and if they've got specific questions, and I'm happy to help people. What's real tough for me is when people say, how do I get to 4 deals a month? And I have no idea what you're already doing. What's working. Like, I don't have a baseline, but if it's specific questions, man, I'm happy to help, man. It's because it shows you've already done some things. But yeah, you can get me on Facebook there. And then I think, like I said, it's Laptop REI Guy on Instagram, but I'm going to start using that. It's pretty cool.
I'll write down the Facebook there. Yeah. And if you guys are in Arizona or doing deals in Arizona, North Carolina, South Carolina, and you have some buyers or some sellers, I'm sure Brian would love to help you out and maybe JV some deals with you guys. So definitely hit him up. Really cool dude. And he might be wearing a hat when he's talking to you, but dude, Brian, I appreciate you coming on, man. Any last little words before we wrap this thing up?
No, but actually just one, man. I'll tell you, people aren't going to understand what you're doing. And it's not like a job where you work and then you're getting paid. Just know the pay does come. You just don't know when the payday is, and it's bigger than when you get at your job. So when you go out, if you don't feel like you've worked till you're tired, you've not done enough in that way.
That's really good.
That's it.
Can't end it any better. Yo, guys, I appreciate you guys listening to this. And Brian, for coming on. If you're listening to this on iTunes or Spotify, check out the YouTube video on Raul Bulufe, raulbulufe.com. Brian, appreciate you, bro.
Yes, sir, brother. All right, man. Talk to you soon. Thank you for having me.
Peace, man. See you guys on the next one.
Peace.